I'm Pearl Garcia, a 32-year-old graphic designer living in a sleepy coastal town in Oregon, where the ocean's hum is the soundtrack to my days. Life here is supposed to be simple: seagulls, salty air, and quiet evenings sketching by the window. I moved here from Seattle a few years back, craving a break from the city's chaos and the weight of my childhood, where my parents' constant critiques made me feel like I could never measure up. Art became my escape, a way to prove I was enough. When I met Ronald Campbell, my high school sweetheart, I thought I'd finally found someone who saw me for me. His easy smile and quiet kindness felt like home, and when we got married, I believed we were building something unbreakable. Not long after our wedding, I got the news that changed everything. I was pregnant. One morning, as I stared at the positive test in our tiny bathroom, my heart raced with a mix of joy and fear. Ronald was over the moon, pulling me into a hug so tight I could feel his heartbeat. "Pearl, we're gonna be parents," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. We spent that evening dreaming about our baby. Would they have his hazel eyes or my stubborn streak? It was our little secret, a bubble of happiness we wanted to protect. Ronald, always the cautious one, suggested we wait until after the first trimester to share the news. I agreed, but keeping it inside felt like trying to hold back the tide. Ronald's family, though, was a different story. His mom, Helen, is a retired schoolteacher who runs her household like a classroom, every detail scrutinized. Growing up, she controlled Ronald's choices, his clothes, his hobbies, even his friends, leaving him hesitant to push back. Helen's warm smile hides a sharp edge, and from the moment I met her, I felt like I was being graded. Ronald's sister, Lauren, a yoga instructor with a chip on her shoulder, treats me like I stole something from her. I think it's because Ronald and I are so close, and she's always felt like the odd one out in their family. His brother, Ryan, a mechanic, keeps his distance, probably burned out from years of Helen's drama. Their dad, Brian, a fisherman, just stays quiet, his eyes fixed on the horizon like he's avoiding the storm at home. Family gatherings are like walking through a minefield. One afternoon, as we got ready for a barbecue at their house, Helen called to remind me to dress appropriately for the occasion. I rolled my eyes, tugging at my sundress in the mirror. "It's just a barbecue," I muttered to Ronald, who was fussing with his hair. He gave me a small smile, but didn't say much. That's Ronald, sweet but allergic to conflict. When we arrived, Helen zeroed in on a tiny stain on my skirt. "Pearl, dear, didn't you notice that spot?" she said, her voice dripping with concern that wasn't really concern. I forced a smile, my cheeks burning. "I'll be more careful next time," I said, swallowing the urge to snap back. Lauren chimed in, "Oh, don't worry, Pearl. Not everyone's cut out for perfection." Her smirk made my Brian twist, but I bit my tongue, not wanting to ruin the day. Later, I called my best friend, Chloe Nguyen, to vent. Chloe's a nurse with a no-nonsense attitude, shaped by her own battles with toxic in-laws. "Pearl, you're too nice," she said, her voice crackling through the phone. "Helen's testing you, and Lauren's just jealous. You've got to stand up to them, especially now with a baby on the way." I sighed, staring out at the Oregon waves crashing against the shore. "I know, but Ronald hates drama, and I don't want to make things worse." Chloe laughed, but it was gentle. "Girl, you're carrying their grandkid. They should be kissing your feet, not throwing shade." Her words stuck with me, but the thought of confronting Helen made my Brian churn, though, to be fair, that could have been the morning sickness talking. As the weeks went by, keeping the pregnancy a secret got harder. My jeans stopped fitting, and I was living in stretchy leggings, hoping no one would notice. One night, Ronald and I were curled up on the couch, the glow of a lighthouse flickering through our window. He looked at me, his hazel eyes soft but nervous. "Pearl, maybe it's time to tell them. At the barbecue next week." My heart skipped. Part of me wanted to keep our joy private, safe from Helen's judgment and Lauren's snark. But Ronald was right. We couldn't hide it forever. "Okay," I said, trying to sound brave. "Let's do it." But as I said it, a knot formed in my gut. I had a feeling this announcement would stir up more than just congratulations, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what was coming. Living with Ronald's family breathing down my neck felt like trying to paint a masterpiece in a windstorm. Every move I made was under Helen's microscope. One evening, as I was prepping dinner in our cozy kitchen, she called to check in on our plans for the barbecue. "Pearl, you're bringing a salad, right? Make sure it's fresh. Last time, the lettuce was a bit wilted," she said, her voice all sweetness with a sting. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "Got it, Helen," I replied, keeping my tone even. Ronald overheard and gave me a sympathetic look, but didn't say a word. I wished he'd step in, just once, to tell his mom to ease up, but that wasn't his style. He'd grown up tiptoeing around her, and old habits die hard. Lauren wasn't much better. At a family lunch a few days earlier, she'd watched me set the table and said, "Pearl, those napkins are cute, but paper? We usually use cloth for family events." Her smile was all teeth, like she was marking her territory. I wanted to scream that I wasn't trying to compete for the family crown, but I just nodded, feeling smaller with every jab. Ryan, as usual, stayed out of it, tinkering with his coffee mug like it was the most fascinating thing in the room. Brian, Ronald's dad, gave me a quick nod, his way of acknowledging my existence without getting involved. I felt like an outsider in a family I was supposed to belong to. That night, I called Chloe again, pacing our living room with the phone pressed to my ear. The ocean roared outside, matching the storm in my chest. "I can't keep doing this, Chloe," I said, my voice breaking. "Helen acts like I'm failing some test, and Lauren's waiting for me to trip up. I'm supposed to be glowing, right? That's what pregnant women do. But I just feel trapped." Chloe's voice was steady, like an anchor. "Pearl, you're not trapped. You're carrying a miracle, and they're too busy playing power games to see it. You need to draw a line, especially for your kid." Her words hit hard. I'd spent my childhood shrinking under my parents' criticism, and I didn't want my baby growing up in a family where love came with conditions. As the barbecue approached, my nerves were frayed. I spent hours perfecting a strawberry spinach salad, hoping to win Helen over, even though I knew it was a long shot. Ronald noticed me fussing and wrapped his arms around me. "You're amazing, you know that?" he said, kissing my forehead. His warmth eased the tension, but I couldn't shake the dread. "What if they ruin this for us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He squeezed my hand. "They won't. This is our moment." I wanted to believe him, but his reluctance to challenge his family made me wonder if he'd have my back when it mattered. The morning of the barbecue, I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing my dress over my barely there bump. I felt a flutter, my baby, reminding me why this mattered. Ronald and I had decided to share the news today, hoping it would shift the family's focus to something joyful. But as we packed the car with my salad and a cooler of drinks, my stomach twisted, and not just from morning sickness. Helen's house was only a short drive away, perched on a hill overlooking the Pacific, but it felt like I was heading into a lion's den. I took a deep breath, clutching Ronald's hand. "We've got this," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I nodded, trying to borrow his confidence, but deep down, I knew this day would test us in ways we weren't prepared for. The barbecue at Helen's house smelled like charcoal and sea salt, but the air was thick with tension. Her backyard, with its sweeping view of the Oregon coast, should have felt like a postcard, but all I could focus on was the knot in my stomach. I set my salad on the table, catching Helen's eye as she inspected it like a health inspector. "Looks colorful," she said, her lips pursing. "Did you rinse the strawberries properly?" I forced a smile, my fingers digging into my palms. "Twice," I said, keeping my voice light. Lauren hovered nearby, tossing her hair. "Pearl, that dress is bold. Feeling confident today." Her tone was all sugar, but her eyes were sharp. I ignored her, focusing on arranging the plates, but my heart was pounding. As we sat down to eat, Helen didn't let up. "Pearl, this chicken's a bit tough. Did you marinate it long enough?" she asked, cutting into a piece like it had personally offended her. Ronald shifted beside me, but he didn't speak up. I swallowed my frustration, managing a polite, I'll try longer next time. The table was quiet except for the clink of forks and Brian's occasional cough. Ryan stared at his plate, and I felt like I was dining with strangers instead of family. My baby kicked again, a tiny reminder of why I was here, and I clung to that spark of hope. Ronald cleared his throat, his hand finding mine under the table. "We have something to share," he said, his voice steady but nervous. My pulse raced as he looked at me, his eyes warm. "Pearl and I were having a baby." For a moment, the world stopped. Brian actually smiled, a rare crack in his stoic facade. Ryan muttered, "Nice, congrats." But Helen's face froze, her fork hovering midair. Lauren's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into something between a smirk and a scowl. Then Helen spoke, her voice cold as the ocean breeze. "A baby? Pearl, are you sure? This seems awfully convenient, with Ronald's promotion coming up." My breath caught, like I'd been slapped. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. Helen leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine. "It's just suspicious timing. How do we know you're really pregnant?" Lauren jumped in, her voice dripping with venom. "Yeah, I remember you saying you weren't ready for kids last year. Funny how things change." I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. I turned to Ronald, waiting for him to shut this down, to tell them they were out of line. But he just looked confused, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he said weakly. Helen stood, her chair scraping against the deck. "If you're pregnant, prove it. A blood test would clear things up." My jaw dropped. "Prove it?" This was supposed to be a celebration, not an interrogation. I looked at Ronald, my heart pleading for him to stand by me. But he hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe it's not a bad idea, Pearl. Just to put this to rest." His words hit like a betrayal, tearing through the trust we'd built. I stood, my chair wobbling behind me. "This is insane. I'm not doing this." My voice cracked, anger and hurt colliding. I turned to leave, my eyes burning with tears, but Helen stepped in front of me, her face hard. "If you walk away, we'll know you're lying," she said, her voice like a blade. "Get out of my way," I snapped, my hands shaking. Then it happened, so fast, yet like time slowed down. Helen's hand shot out, shoving me hard. I stumbled backward, my foot catching the edge of the deck. I reached for something, anything, but my hands grasped air. Ryan lunged toward me, his face panicked, but he was too late. I fell, the world spinning as I hit the ground below, pain exploding through me before everything went black. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, the sterile smell, and beeping monitors pulling me back. My first thought was my baby. Was she okay? Tears stung my eyes as I clutched my stomach, fear choking me. A doctor appeared, her voice calm. "Ms. Garcia, you're stable and your baby's fine." Relief flooded me, but it was fleeting. The memory of Helen's shove, Lauren's smirk, and Ronald's silence crashed over me like a wave. I felt more alone than ever, betrayed by the people who were supposed to be my family. As I lay there, one question burned. Could I ever trust Ronald again? The hospital room felt like a cage, the beeping monitors a constant reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. My baby was safe, but the sting of Ronald's betrayal cut deeper than the bruises on my body. He stood by my bed, his face pale, his eyes pleading. "Pearl, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know it would go this far. I turned away, my heart heavy. His words felt empty, like a breeze that couldn't move the storm inside me. How could he stand there, apologizing, after letting his mother question my truth? After standing by while she pushed me? Before I could respond, Chloe burst through the door, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. "Pearl, oh my God, are you okay?" she said, her eyes scanning me before turning to Ronald, blazing with anger. "And you, what the hell? How could you let this happen?" Ronald stammered, it wasn't, but Chloe cut him off. "Save it," she snapped, her voice like a whip. She turned to me, her expression softening. "I'm here, Pearl. Whatever you need." Ronald mumbled something about needing air and slipped out, leaving me with Chloe, who sat beside me, her hand warm on mine. I poured out everything. The accusations, Helen's shove, Ronald's hesitation. Chloe's face darkened with every word, her jaw tight. As we talked, we heard voices in the hallway. Helen's sharp tone carried through the door. We just need to convince Ronald it was an accident. Pearl's always been dramatic. She probably tripped. Lauren's voice chimed in, smug. Yeah, and that pregnancy? Bet she's faking it to keep him. My blood ran cold, but Chloe's eyes lit up. Without a word, she pulled out her phone and hit record, capturing every damning word. As their voices faded, she looked at me, her expression fierce. They're not getting away with this. That moment flipped a switch in me. I'd spent too long trying to please Helen, to fit into Ronald's family, to shrink myself to avoid conflict. No more. Chloe, I'm done, I said, my voice steady despite the tears. I'm leaving Ronald. I have to protect my baby. Her eyes softened, but she nodded. I've got your back. Let's make sure they pay for this. Over the next few hours, we built a plan. Chloe talked to a nurse she knew, who provided copies of my medical records, showing my pregnancy and injuries consistent with a push. We need statements from the staff too, Chloe said, her mind racing. They saw your condition when you came in. I hesitated, thinking of Ronald. His texts kept coming, full of apologies but also questions, like he still half believed his mother. Forward them to me, Chloe said, her voice firm. It's evidence. I did, each message a reminder of his doubt. Then I made the call I never thought I would. Hello, is this Rachel Hayes' office? I need to talk to her about a domestic abuse case. My voice shook, but I felt a spark of strength. Chloe returned, her arms full of papers. Got it all, records, statements, and that recording of Helen and Lauren's scheming. She grinned, but her eyes were serious. You're doing the right thing, Pearl. When Ronald came back, his face was a mix of guilt and confusion. Pearl, Mom wants to apologize. Can we talk? He said, his voice desperate. I looked at him, the man I'd loved since we were kids sneaking out to watch the stars. But that love wasn't enough anymore. No, Ronald, I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm done. Your family crossed a line and you didn't stop them. I can't trust you to protect us. His face crumpled, but I didn't waver. I'm leaving, and I'm taking our baby somewhere safe. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Chloe stepped forward, her presence a shield. She said her piece, Ronald. Respect it. He left, his shoulders slumped, and as the door closed, I felt a weight lift. It hurt, but it was the first step toward freedom. Months passed, and my life became a whirlwind of change. I was 8 months pregnant, waddling around Chloe's cozy apartment in our Oregon town, my belly a constant reminder of the future I was fighting for. The ocean outside her window roared, steady and strong, like the resolve I'd found. Chloe handed me a glass of water one morning, her eyes searching mine. Ready for court today? She asked. I took a sip, my hand trembling slightly. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, managing a small smile. The thought of facing Helen and Ronald in a courtroom made my stomach churn, but I wasn't backing down. The courtroom was packed, the air heavy with anticipation. Across the room, Helen sat with her usual poise, like she was untouchable. Lauren fidgeted beside her, her confidence faltering. Ronald was there too, his eyes avoiding mine, looking like a man caught in a storm he didn't understand. My lawyer, Rachel Hayes, was a force, sharp, calm, and ready. She laid out our case with precision. My medical records, proving my pregnancy and injuries, statements from hospital staff who'd seen me wheeled in, bruised and terrified, and Ronald's texts, showing his doubt. Then came the bombshell. Your Honor, we'd like to present audio evidence of the defendants conspiring to cover up their actions, Rachel said, her voice cutting through the room. As Helen and Lauren's voices played, scheming to call my fall an accident, questioning my pregnancy, the courtroom went silent. Helen's face drained of color, her composure cracking. Lauren looked like she wanted to disappear. Ronald's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. My focus was on the judge, whose expression hardened as he listened. Mrs. Campbell, he said to Helen, his voice like steel, you pushed your daughter-in-law off a deck, endangering her and her unborn child. How do you plead? Helen stammered. It was an accident. The judge cut her off. Save it for your lawyer. You're facing charges of assault and endangering an unborn child. During a break, Ronald approached, his face haggard. Pearl, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? His voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd loved, the one who'd held my hand through high school heartbreaks. But that boy was gone, replaced by someone who'd chosen his mother over me and our child. No, Ronald, I said, my voice steady. You doubted me when I needed you most.
There's no coming back from that.
His shoulders slumped, and he walked away, the distance between us final. When the judge's gavel fell, it was like a door slamming shut on my past. In the matter of Garcia versus Campbell, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff. Ms. Pearl Garcia is granted a divorce, full custody of her unborn child, and a settlement of $750,000 for emotional damages and medical expenses. Relief washed over me, warm and overwhelming. Helen faced jail time for assault, and I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, ready to build a life where my baby and I could thrive. 3 years later, I'm blowing up balloons for my daughter Fiona's 3rd birthday. She's my little warrior, born against all odds, now giggling as she chases bubbles in our backyard. Chloe walks in, arms loaded with gifts, her grin as bright as the Oregon sun. Where's my favorite birthday girl? She calls, and Fiona squeals, Auntie Chloe. I watch them, my heart full. My life looks nothing like I'd imagined. I run a graphic design business now, helping survivors like me tell their stories through art and words. It's my way of turning pain into purpose, of giving others the voice I fought to find. The party fills our home with laughter, friends, neighbors, my chosen family. No Helen, no Lauren, no shadows of the past. Helen's serving her sentence, and I don't think about her much anymore. Ronald sends cards sometimes, but I don't open them. Fiona and I are enough, surrounded by people who lift us up. As I tuck Fiona into bed that night, her tiny hand in mine, I whisper, Happy birthday, my brave girl. The world's yours. I kiss her forehead, feeling a peace I'd never known before. This life, safe, joyful, mine, was worth every battle. Reflecting on it all, I wonder, was I too hard on Ronald? Should I have given him a chance to make things right? Part of me aches for the love we had, but I know I had to protect Fiona and myself. What would you have done? If you faced a choice like this or know someone who has, share your thoughts below. Your story might help someone else find their strength. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, courage, and new beginnings. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and join us, where every moment shared builds a community of healing and hope. Keep fighting for your truth, and I'll meet you in the light of a new day.